All right. I'm going to take the reading this morning from my book. Da, da, da. And so it is. And it actually is the reading for August 29th. And when I opened it up this morning, I thought, wow, how apropos. In our contemplative meditation, so that you all remember, I'm going to do this reading. You will then have a minute of silence to contemplate what you heard. Then Jackson comes in with a song. Then I do a spiritual mind treatment. Then he does another song. And then I'll be introducing our wonderful guest speaker this morning. So take a breath. Regardless of the appearances of the world around us, we are living in really exciting times. I believe humanity is on the verge of a major breakthrough. Marilyn Ferguson described it years ago in her book, The Aquarian Conspiracy, as a paradigm shift. The word paradigm comes from the Old Latin meaning pattern. Miss Ferguson used it to mean a pattern in consciousness. She wrote that as the new paradigm took hold, the old fights to stay alive. We're seeing this happen right now. For the first time in history, more people than not are beginning to have an understanding that we can take responsibility for what happens in our world. The leadership around the globe is being shaken to the core by the realization that they are no longer really in charge. The outpouring of concern and compassion for the peoples of our world by the people is awesome. Lots of us are standing up for peace in one way or another. It's time to remember, as Dr. Holmes writes, the saying of peace will not produce peace unless back of the word is the realization of the meaning of peace. He also wrote that, undoubtedly, each of us is now demonstrating our concept of life, but trained thought is far more powerful than untrained, and the one who gives conscious power to their thought should be more careful what they think than the one who does not. As aware people, our responsibility becomes greater. We know that our words, our thoughts, our feelings have power, and most of us are consciously in the process of training our thoughts. Now is the time to ask ourselves, what is my consciousness behind the word peace? In truth, the paradigm shift has already happened. The demonstration is almost complete. Keep up the good work.
I see joy, I see peace, I see goodness surrounding me. I see love in every breath I breathe. I see God in everything. I see happiness, I see freedom. I see the beauty that lives in me. I see perfection in what life brings. I see God in everything.
Yes, I see God in everything. And I know this morning we learn how to see God even better. We remember from some deep place within us that the one who's doing the seeing is God. And so we celebrate this morning. We celebrate our gathering together, our spiritual gathering. We celebrate knowing for each other the highest and best. We celebrate the wonders of technology that make this possible. I know for each one of us that we get something powerful for this next week of our spiritual adventure called life. I'm so grateful for all of us who are on this journey together. And so it is.
I feel joy, I feel peace, I feel goodness surrounding me. I feel love in every breath I breathe. I feel God in everything. I feel happiness, I feel freedom. I feel the beauty that lives in me. I feel perfection in what life brings. I feel God in everything.
Well, I have a wonderful treat for you this morning. I'm so glad that I just happened to talk to Dr. Pat the other day and found out that she had today off and asked the question, and she said yes. And, before the service, Dr. Pat said we've probably known each other 25 years. And when I think about Pat, when I first met her, she was the senior minister down in Temecula, California, and doing quite well. And she's sort of like me, the universe said, well, I think you need to go to Canada. And that's where she ended up and has been for I don't know how many years now, but I know that the Calgary Center for Spiritual Living adores her. And just like those of us who saw Dr. Pat at Asilomar, we recognize in her that she's real, that she's funny, that she teaches principle in a way that helps each one of us have a deeper understanding of it and embody it so well. So let's put our screens, let's put our screen on speaker view so that we can really see her, and let's welcome Dr. Pat Campbell. So you got to unmute yourself, Pat. Oops.
Are you going to continue to share screen? Oh, there we go. Hi. Let me just look around the room real quickly. It's really nice to be here. What I ask from my community, just before I get ready to speak, is for us to breathe together. And we're kind of a hybrid service right now where we're half in person and half still online, but it's still, there's something about breathing together that is just very special. So if you would indulge me, please, would you please breathe with me? So just take it in. We usually breathe 3 times, so one more time. And again. Reverend Angelica mentioned how wonderful that through the miracle of technology that we're able to be here. Here I am in another country and I'm able to be with you, but there is something about breathing together that just puts us all on the same page. So as she mentioned, my talk title is, Are Your Buttons Getting Pushed? So my question to you is, have you ever had anybody in your life who just bugs you, someone who just knows how to get a rise out of you without effort, someone who just simply pushes your buttons. And ironically, isn't that person often someone who's close to you, like a relative or a loved one or a friend or a coworker? I mean, what's up with that? What's up with that? Well, somebody recently gave me an explanation for the phenomenon. It made all the sense in the world to me. The reason why our family members or people close to us know where our buttons are is because they put them there. I mean, if you think about it, usually the people who know us best are the people that we grew up with or the people that we spend a lot of time with. And our buttons, those sensitive areas of our lives that are subject to being pushed, were installed when someone we knew did or said something that we reacted negatively to. For instance, those of you who know me or have seen me might find this a little bit hard to believe, but I was a pretty rambunctious little kid. I talked a lot. I talked loudly. I liked being the center of attention. And so all my life, my dad, who was this very shy, very quiet, retiring man, would say things like, Pat, lower your voice, or Pat, don't talk too much, or Pat, settle down. And I would feel so embarrassed and so shamed when I was too loud or I was too enthusiastic. And I got to tell you that it became a huge button for me. If someone implied that I was too loud or that I was talking too much, I reacted immediately with either shame or with anger. And I would want to either cry or lash out boisterously and loudly or run away. And what I know is that my father, who was actually a very kind man, would never, ever have done anything to hurt or to embarrass me on purpose. The truth was, he was just a shy and retiring man who didn't like being the center of attention. So when I was loud, when I drew attention to us, it pushed his button, a button that was probably installed by one of his family members when he was young. Wayne Dyer is attributed to have said, how people treat you is their karma. How you react is yours. And that's an important part of my message today. And that is, even when someone pushes our buttons, most of the time, they're not doing it on purpose. It's that they are reacting to the buttons that they themselves have. Most of the time. Not all the time. Sometimes people are just jerks and they just want to upset us. So if that happens, what do? Do we leave? Do we quit? Do we fight back? Well, most of us don't want to leave our button pushing relationships. We just want the other person to stop doing what they're doing so that we can be in peace. In other words, we want the other person to change. But what I've discovered in my life, at least, maybe it's different for yours, but in my life, I've discovered that people don't change when I want them to. But people can and do change how they are with us when we change. In other words, people can't push our buttons. They can't upset us if we take our buttons and we rewire them. We move them someplace where the people who might want to push them can't find them. So today's lesson is about lovingly and consciously rewiring our buttons and putting them out of reach of someone who might be abusing them, whether they're doing it on purpose or not. Just move the button. I know you all know this because with Reverend Angelica, who is such an astute, such a clear teacher, But one of the hardest things to accept when we are endeavoring to live an awakening life is that life shows up for us according to our thoughts and our beliefs. In other words, if something is showing up in our life, it's there because we have somehow attracted it. Now, usually not on purpose. It's usually some old belief system that's lurking in our subconscious mind somewhere. And we often don't know that it's even there until we have an experience that shows up as a reflection of that belief. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Ernest Holmes put it this way. He said, it is as if the law of life were giving back to each one of us exactly what we have projected into it, as though everything that goes out from us must again return by the law of action and reaction. So let's take, for instance, my button about being too loud or about talking too much. If I didn't have some sort of a shame-filled belief that I really was too loud and I really was too rowdy, if that wasn't always lurking there, then someone implying it wouldn't bother me. In other words, if I was actually proud of my outgoing nature, or if I simply didn't care that I was loud and that I talked too much, then somebody saying something to me about it would be no big deal. In other words, if somebody said to me, "You're too loud," and I actually celebrated that part of me, then there's no button to push. So part of rewiring our buttons is to replace those old negative beliefs about ourselves with higher, more life-affirming, more positive self-beliefs. For example, years ago, long before I knew Reverend Angelica, it was long before I came into this teaching, I always got in trouble at school and at work for talking too much. And so those buttons, I just walked through life with those buttons right there for anybody to push, and they got pushed all the time. However, as I began to study, as I began to wake up to my divinity, to my uniqueness, I began to embrace my enthusiasm. In fact, I began to capitalize on it. So instead of being ashamed of it, I began to use it to enhance my life, not to take away from it. And now the coolest part about it is I actually make my living partially from using those exact same character defects that used to get me in trouble and cause me so much grief. Being enthusiastic is a hallmark of my ministry, just as it is with Reverend Angelica. And there are people who really resonate to that type of enthusiastic way of delivering things. So the question is, did the people in my world change, or did I? And of course, the answer is it was me. And how I did it was by rising above those old ways of thinking, those old ways of believing about myself and seeing my life from that higher perspective. I did it by aligning myself with my higher self and by believing that who I was and what I had to offer had value. I'm not saying this happened overnight. I'm saying it has taken nearly a lifetime to understand. Dr. Holmes also wrote, in such degree as we can shift the basis of our imagery, our belief, our emotional and mental reactions to life, we can come to a place individually of peace and security and happiness. then gradually, as these changes take place, there will be a corresponding change in our environment. I love that. Gradually, as these changes, the internal changes take place, there will be a corresponding change in our environment. That's how this stuff works. When we change our insides, our outsides change. When we release an old belief and we adopt a new one, the outside world has to correspond to how we are different, to the change. Unfortunately, what a lot of us do is that we try to make the change to the outside first. We say things like, when my life gets easier, when that person stops being mean, when my job changes, when my boss leaves, when my kids grow out of that phase, then people won't push my buttons anymore. But of course, it doesn't work like that. We have to move our buttons first, preferably higher. I like the idea of things going higher. Because when we move our buttons higher, they're harder for people to reach. Albert Einstein is attributed to have said, I don't know that he said these exact quote, but I love it anyway. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. And it is our consciousness. It is our old way of thinking that created the problem, therefore created the buttons. So in order to rewire our buttons, we have to rise above the problem and see it from a spiritual perspective. And that spiritual perspective is that as a divine expression of spirit, every one of us, it is our birthright. It is our birthright to be happy, to feel accomplished, to experience joy. We are supposed to be fulfilled and fully expressed. It is our purpose. It is our reason for being here. It is our reason for being here to express life fully. And Dr. Holmes said it this way. I love to quote Holmes in case you couldn't tell. He said, everything in the universe is a unique individualization or expression of the one thing, which is the cause of all things. You should become aware that the one creative power is expressing in you in a unique way, and that it is always pressing against you, seeking a fuller outlet of its infinite possibilities. Just take that in. It is always pressing against you, seeking a fuller outlet of its infinite possibilities. But the problem is many of us go through life believing what other people have told us, which installed our buttons up until now. Now we know what to do. Now we know how to move them. So I have 7 really simple tools that were written by Kimberly Cohen on how to rewire our buttons. So here's the first one. In order to rewire our buttons, acknowledge what your buttons are reflecting about you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because once you see what they're reflecting, then you can see that it's an opportunity for you to grow, to learn and expand. Number 2, this one was a toughie. Recognize where else this same feeling is showing up in your life. Because chances are you feel this way with more than one person. So examine where other people and other situations bring about the same type of emotion and the same reactions. And then Dun, 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 dun. Let go of the need to change someone else. Let go of the need to be right and make them wrong. Let go of the need to control, to be heard, to be acknowledged, and to fix them. Give up the expectation of how things need to be. You liked me up until that point, didn't you? The next one is pay attention to your insights about the situation. Figure out where your insights are emanating from. What is it they're trying to tell you? If you are being the observer and you are paying attention, then you'll intuitively know what it is that you should do or shouldn't do or can do or can't do. And you'll find that sometimes insight is telling you to do nothing, to just let it be. Number 5 is to remember the bigger picture. The big picture. We are all together on this big, beautiful, abundant planet. Everyone, everything is connected. Everyone and everything is here for growth, for learning, for expansion. Number 6, remember that choices are available to you. You can choose to not allow the person to ruffle your feathers, to push your button, or you can let your feathers fly. You can make choices and you can set boundaries that are best for you, or you can continue to feel stressed and feel frustrated. You could try to change someone else, or you can change your reactions and actions. You always have a choice. And the last one, save the best for last as far as I'm concerned. Treat others the way you want to be treated. In other words, if you want others to consider your feelings and respect you, do things for you, to be loyal, to be kind, to be caring, to be considerate, then consider 2 things. Because it all starts from within. Can you still treat button pushers the way you want to be treated, even when they don't? And most importantly, do you treat yourself the way you want to be treated, even when they don't? We live in an inside-out universe. And by practicing these simple these tools, what happens is you can bring about changes to your world because you are doing it from the inside. You are rewiring your buttons from the inside out, because that is where change happens. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and talk to you and to be part of your service today. I've loved it. Thank you so much. And so it is.
Pat, I want you to end with a treatment.
Let's do that then.
Thank you.
Okay. So as we go within with these words of possibility resounding in our minds, because we do know that at the center of everything, there is only one mind, one infinite intelligence, one loving source, that life force energy that flows through everything, is everything, expresses itself through all and everything. And I know that I am part of it, and I know what is true for me is true for everyone who is here today. In fact, it is true for everyone everywhere. And so as we go through this life as spiritual beings, having this human experience, every day, a little bit more, we understand that we are spiritual beings first and foremost, and that we are here to learn and grow here with life on earth in this human incarnation. And even as opportunities for growth make themselves available in the form of people or buttons or challenges or anything like that, we keep our mind stayed on the truth. And the truth is, it is all good, it is all God, and that it is all ultimately for us. And so if there's any changes, anything that needs to take place within us, we do so, we recognize it, and then we do so in the best ways that we know how. We use the spiritual tools, we use the mental tools that we have available to us in order to make a shift in consciousness that allows us to have a shift in our life experience. This is the beautiful creative process, and I give thanks for it. And so with my heart filled with gratitude for knowing this and speaking this, I release this treatment into the law, into the action of the law, knowing that it is done as I've spoken. I let it be so. And affirm with me, and so it is.